Kratos is no stranger to the concept of death. Having died more than once, he's re-emerged from the depths of the underworld as if it were a mere nuisance. How many video game characters can you honestly say have death compilation videos after them? Not many. So why is it when the idea of Kratos dying in God of War Ragnarok is mentioned, people are opposed and sometimes even defensive? Join me as I discuss what are the possibilities of Kratos dying and its implications for the story. But before we start, my goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers before God of War Ragnarok is released. Let's also see if we can hit 1,000 likes on this video, so if you could take the time to like and subscribe, it would honestly mean the world to me. Also, if like me you love everything God of War related, why not consider becoming a member? There is no obligation, but if you do, it is affordable with perks such as being added to a members only Discord where you can discuss everything God of War related, join me for future live Q&As on YouTube, and be given a shout out at the end of videos. With that said, let's begin. Kratos' death count itself is somewhat debatable, but we know for a fact he died in God of War 1 by Ares and in God of War 2 by Zeus. Via a poll on YouTube, I asked the God of War community whether Kratos would die. At the time of making this video, 66% of over 8,000 people agreed he'd die, but with the catch he'd re-emerge as he has in the past. However, this prediction isn't strictly because of his history of dying. In God of War 2018, we saw a mural of Atreus holding a dying figure. The figure's identity has deliberately been kept a mystery, however, the vast majority have assumed this to be Kratos. Also, based on Kratos' reaction, it seemed he was convinced it was him. But yes, this may well be Tyr since a part of the mural is missing where the right arm is meant to be. Then there's the conversation between Kratos and Atreus, where Kratos states he'd allow Atreus to kill him if it meant he lived, which I believe is foreshadowing of his death in Ragnarok.
You killed her son, lad. Her son. The death of a child is not something a parent gets over easily.
But he was gonna kill her.
She would have died to see him live. Only a parent can understand.
So you'd let me kill you?
If it meant you would live. Yes.
Additionally, Dark Horse Comics published a 4-part series named Fallen God. In the comics, it's detailed that not only are the Blades of Chaos bound to him, but he also has a cursed undying state, explaining when he put the Blade of Olympus through himself, he was able to travel from Greece to Egypt. We also learned Athena is somewhat pulling the strings, however, the curse is still widely a mystery. Regardless, this means in theory if Kratos were to die now, he'd come back to life, though being foreign to the Norse lands does pose some mystery as to where he'd go. It would be safe to assume Helheim being the land of the dead in the 9 realms. Importantly, this piece of lore will have vast implications. This would allow Sony Santa Monica to yet again allow Kratos to die, however, let him return and remain the face of the series. Overall, all these points strongly suggest the possibility of Kratos dying. Now to address why some fans are opposed to this idea. The first reason is, provided Kratos dies at the hands of Thor, people believe it would undermine Kratos' powers. Though, I disagree with this. I mentioned in my Why Thor is an Important Character video the possibility of being beaten by Thor. My explanation was, since becoming a father, Kratos has had to hold back his strength in an attempt not to resort back to the monster of the past. Ultimately to set a good example for his son and aid him to end the cycle of patricide. But even if he dies at the hands of Thor, this doesn't necessarily mean Thor is a stronger god. We could take his previous deaths as an example. In the same way Kratos initially died to Ares and Zeus but returned to beat them, we could view Thor in the same manner. Kratos always had the potential to overcome those threats, but at the moment was not ready. In this case, it may be he's unaware of Thor's weakness, needing a new weapon, or perhaps needing to revisit a part of himself from the past. So with that said, what story and gameplay implications could there be of Kratos dying? After learning about Kratos' cursed state, fans began theorizing it may be our ticket to reaching Asgard. 2018 established Asgard as well as Svartalfheim and Vanaheim were locked by Odin in an attempt to aid him to control Ragnarok. It's been widely known Odin hung himself from a branch of the World Tree in pursuit of knowledge. Not only that, note how Mimir says in this clip Odin roamed the realms of the dead, as in plural.
So why do they call Odin the Lord of the Hang?
That refers to a modest example of Odin's thirst for knowledge. The time he spent 9 days a dead man. Hung himself by the neck from Yggdrasil's branches, put his spear through his own side and bled down into the Well of Destiny. He roamed the realms of the dead and plundered the World Tree of its secrets, until I think quite rightly it got fed up with him and sent him back to the land of the living. Did I not mention he was barking mad?
Now, this may well be referring to nothing more than Helheim, but what if he was able to access an exclusive place, otherwise inaccessible? After all, he hung himself from the World Tree, which symbolizes all of existence. Not only that, no one other than Odin has died in such a manner. Who knows what he saw and learned on those 9 days he remained dead. But at the very least, according to lore and legends, since Odin didn't die in battle, rather than going to Valhalla, he was presumably sent to the Helheim we visited. Based on Mimir's tale, it's implied Odin was able to gain knowledge while dead. Perhaps Kratos could do what Odin did and gain knowledge crucial to winning Ragnarok. Also, based on the fact we've somewhat restored order to the Valkyries, if Kratos died in battle he would be sent to Valhalla. Not to mention the Valkyries are indebted to him and have a common interest in ridding the 9 realms of Odin, the person responsible for their previous corrupt state. That alliance combined with his cursed state and being bound to the Blades of Chaos would mean he would not only be alive in Valhalla, but the Blades would follow him as they did in Fallen God. As opposed to say Odin's spear, which presumably stayed where he hung himself, allowing Kratos to fight the Asgardian threat not empty-handed and with arguably the second strongest weapon he's ever held. As for how Atreus would tie into this could be the perfect opportunity to age him, since time flows differently depending on the realm. Why would we want to do this though? It would allow Atreus' powers to mature more and perhaps see him shapeshift into animals, just like the Norse myth details. From a gameplay perspective, it could also mean being able to play as Atreus independently, although I don't believe it would be more than a sequence, if even that, since Kratos is still very much in the spotlight. Moving on to the second point, fans see Kratos' death as a permanent event. But how would the God of War series continue without quite literally the God of War? It's safe to assume Sony Santa Monica aren't going to be killing off one of their most recognizable characters anytime soon. But what about Atreus having a standalone game? While Atreus has made his mark quickly in the series, I'd argue his character development is still in its early stages to have a dedicated game. I see the Norse saga as a means for character development for Atreus, then when we presumably move on to Egypt, we will be able to engage in a deep combat system built on the rich lore established previously. So, in conclusion, I believe it is likely Kratos will die in God of War Ragnarok, but it will crucially serve as a means to help him win during Ragnarok. This can be seen as a necessary event to grow as a character, the same way Ares and Zeus pushed his character development. However, I believe his death will be temporary and we can expect him to return as he has in past games. That about covers today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe he will die or not? What are your reasons? Also let me know what you'd like discussed next. Once again, my goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers before Ragnarok, so if you could subscribe and leave a like, that would honestly mean the world to me. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all soon. Take care.